Between 1980 and 1992, El Salvador was consumed by a war that tore apart not only its cities, but its very soul, a conflict rooted in decades of inequality, political repression, and social injustice, where the poor majority, struggling to survive under the weight of poverty and landlessness, rose up against a state controlled by a narrow elite backed by military power. The Civil War was not simply a fight between armies, it was a war waged on the streets, in villages, and even inside homes, where neighbors were forced to choose between loyalty, survival, or resistance, and where fear became a constant companion, shaping every decision, every interaction, and every fleeting hope for normal life. Guerrilla groups, united under the Farabundo Martin National Liberation Front, sought to challenge a government they saw as corrupt, violent, and indifferent to the suffering of its people, while the Salvadoran army, supported with money, training, and weapons from the United States, waged a counterinsurgency campaign that often blurred the line between combat and massacre, leaving civilians trapped between bullets, indiscriminate, and pervasive. Whole villages were destroyed under the suspicion of harboring rebels. Ordinary citizens were executed in their homes, schools became battlegrounds, and the countryside was marked with fear, suspicion, and blood, a terrifying theater where the ordinary rhythms of life, planting crops, attending church, caring for family, became acts of defiance or survival. The conflict created hundreds of thousands of refugees, fractured families, and a generation scarred by trauma, witnessing atrocities that left psychological and social wounds deeper than the physical damage. Every act of violence was a message. The state would tolerate no dissent, and the insurgents would accept no compromise. This stalemate turned El Salvador into a nation where violence became the language of power, and survival became the currency of life. International attention came sporadically, often focused on ideology rather than human suffering, with Cold War politics framing the war as a fight against communism rather than a struggle for justice and equality. Peace came only after 12 years of relentless bloodshed, negotiation, and exhaustion on both sides, culminating in the Chapultepec Peace Accords of 1992. Yet even in peace, the echoes of the Civil War lingered. Communities torn apart, distrust hardened into social norms, and the scars of fear and grief passed silently through generations. The Salvadoran Civil War was not just a historical event, it was a devastating reminder of how inequality, oppression, and ideological conflict can fracture a nation.